it's understanding what the business wants to achieve is the short answer. So understanding where the business wants to get to, and drilling down to what it uses internally, so resources, partners, processes to get to where it wants to go, and then making sure that that is the priority of security. So excellence is not an act, it's a habit. It's getting rid of all the noise and saying this is what we need to concentrate on to make sure the business needs to get to. And then making sure all your security solutions are aligned to that. So while we can't affect the motivation offender, we can't stop someone trying something, but what we can do is we can stop them by our actions as a business. We can stop them achieving their aim.
Welcome back to Made to Grow, the podcast for SME manufacturers brought to you by FlowLens. I'm Rich Steele, your host and founder of FlowLens, the simple, scalable MRP and MES software designed for SME manufacturers of industrial equipment, machinery and high-tech devices. This episode is all about something many manufacturers don't have time to think about every day: security. For many manufacturers, it might not always be top of the list, but it's becoming an increasingly necessary part of operational planning as more companies embrace the Internet of Things, remote access and decentralized workforces. It's a key part of our Fearless Digital Transformation Framework, the final S of the acronym Fearless relating to security. Luke is here to demystify what a robust security environment looks like for SME manufacturers. He'll share his experience on combining physical and cyber security to create a secure environment where manufacturers can truly thrive. We explored the perfect conditions for security incidents to occur, and importantly, how you can control the risks. We'll also cover essential practices like setting clear policies and, a topic I'm particularly interested in, the ins and outs of Cyber Essentials, the UK government-led standard for securing your cyber environment. So, whether you're wondering about safeguarding your data or understanding how to protect against both inadvertent mistakes and malicious attacks, Luke has some fantastic insights for you. Let's get into it.
So, hi folks, I'm delighted to welcome Luke Appleby from Equilibrium Risk to the Made to Go podcast. Welcome, Luke.
Hiya, thank you. Thanks for inviting me along.
Great, thank you. I've been really looking forward to this conversation because security is probably on the top of a lot of people's minds with these high-profile hacking incidents, and meanwhile, for many manufacturers, it's probably not necessarily the thing that's at the top of their list, but it's maybe an itch that's becoming more and more necessary to scratch. But rather than me make assumptions, could you give the listeners an overview of yourself and what you guys do at Equilibrium Risk?
Yeah, sure. So we are a security management company. We specialize in sort of providing tailored security solutions for manufacturing. So, and that can be physical security solutions. So from your CCTV cameras, which everyone wants to buy, to your sort of bricks and mortar gates, barriers, that sort of stuff, through to the cyber element. So the cyber consultancy, cyber essentials, that sort of stuff, through to the 62443 sort of infrastructure. So we're sort of creating a secure environment in essence for a manufacturer to thrive and grow.
Excellent. And speaking of environments, I mean the environment is changing, particularly with AI and the bring your own devices. I know that's not terribly new, but just the world we live in is ever more complex, and we're offering ever more surfaces potentially for risk, whether it's, as you mentioned, there's physical security, there's subcontractors, there's devices. So I mean, what does the perfect environment for security incidents to occur look like?
Yes, that's a really interesting question, actually. So it's a combination. So if you have a lack of security measures, so a lack of cyber security, a lack of physical security, and interestingly enough, that's where majority of people will focus 90% of their energy. That's where they think, well, let's spend more money on more security measures. But the actual fact, it only makes up one small element of what I would class as the perfect environment for a security incident occur. Opportunity is the biggest driver for something to occur. So the opportunity for crime. So leaving a username password, for example, on a post-it note next to a monitor in itself is not a security risk, but it leaves the opportunity for that to be used for nefarious reasons. Leaving waste product in a skip by an open gate, for example, leaves the opportunity for someone to drive on and nick that. So that's another major driving force for security concerns. And when you combine that with a lack of security measures, then it becomes a really great indicator for something to go wrong. The last element is the motivations of an attacker. So if you have got a motivated attacker, which generally as a business we can't control, but we can influence. So, and if you combine those three elements, so we're talking about a lack of security measures, we're talking about the opportunity for something to occur, and we've got a motivated offender. When those three overlap, your Venn diagram, that bit in the middle there is the perfect scenario for something to occur. So, from a business point of view, while we can't control the motivations of an offender, be that somebody within the organisation or somebody external, there are things we can do to influence it. But what we can do is we can control the opportunity, and we can control the level of security measures we concern. So, or the security measures we use. And if we control those two elements, then the chances of a security incident are far reduced.
I mean, one of the things that occurs to me is that, and you sort of touched on this, is that you have inadvertent security risks and openings, and then you've got the malicious side of things. And I suppose that the robustness and consistency of the application of policies will help both, the inadvertent, post-it note with passwords, sort of try and stamp that out, or indeed the opportunistic kind of skip at the gate. But also if policies are being monitored and managed and enforced, then the opportunity for malicious or pre-planned, what makes it harder to pre-plan, and maybe obviously nobody wants to have employed somebody potentially who comes in with the intent of stealing something or ripping you off, but it's going to happen eventually or potentially.
Well, I think it's slightly more nuanced than that, to be honest. I think if you look at what wrongdoing is a continuum, and it starts at one level where it's sort of low level, and there might be tendency to be dishonest, for example. So they might steal stationery from a cupboard or something like that, and at the other end, it's being dishonest, so stealing company property, fraud, that sort of stuff. But the actual fact is, everyone's on that scale somewhere. Some people live all the way up at the top end. It's that nature versus nurture argument. They're born into an environment where it's perfectly natural and normal to steal company property, to commit fraud, that sort of stuff, because for lots of different socio-economic reasons, and they're quite happy living up there. But there are some people that wouldn't even consider jumping a queue, for example, down at the other end. But the reality is, people will move up and down that line consistently. So if the reward or perceived reward is high enough, and the risk or perceived risk is low enough, people will fluctuate. So from when we talk about motivating an attacker, for example, and opportunity, it's about controlling that, reducing the reward or anticipated reward, and increasing the risk or even perceived risk. And if we can control those two, then we are in control of our security with the business. If you allow the little stuff to go, so people nicking paper reams from the stationery cupboard, for example, or waste product, offcuts, metal, for example. If you allow people to take that for their own personal use, it's kind of a signal to say, well, that's okay. And there are occasions where the bigger stuff is accepted as well, if that makes sense. And I realise that every business is different, but in actual fact, if we can control the little stuff, then we have a much greater chance of stopping the big stuff as well.
Yeah, well, as a parent of two, one teenage boy and one almost teenage boy, I definitely know about how nipping things in the bud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, what just in terms of that piece, what does good look like in terms of a company that wants to, on the one hand, have a culture of trust and engagement and buy-in, but also, have that clear line drawn in the sand. How do you go about affecting that, and what does good look like?
Yeah, good looks depends on the business, but I think with any culture, it's about communication, isn't it? So from the top, being very clear on what your policies are and your procedures are, what the moral compass of the business is. So what are the standards that the business wants to aspire to? So we know what those are, and then we just disseminate that information down so everyone's aware of it. But then also having the bottom up communication strategy, so people are aware when things aren't quite the way they should be going, and they're able to report that or communicate their feelings upwards.
Either they've a way of doing that in a way that they feel is secure in itself, and
Absolutely, but if you look at security, so if you understand that the business has got to deliver the product, whatever it is, right? One of the security strategies you can have is you can have a replacement, right? So if something on your automation line breaks, have an immediate replacement, so you can automatically switch. So the production line can keep going, but you practice it, so it. So if it does work, you practice it, so you know it works. But then you then talk to people. When you're going to practice it, you talk to people and say, right, does it actually work us doing that? So you're involving them in the actual discussion of how we can make sure that the business continue operates. Because at the end of the day, that's what security is about. Security is about ensuring the business can operate and it can make money, and so then staff can be paid and potentially get more money from the business being more efficient. So it's about engaging with people and making sure that people are doing the right things and what they are doing is right for the business. And if they see people that are doing things that are against those policies and procedures, those morals that we sort of talk about, then they have a way of saying, actually, you're acting not in accordance with the way the business wants to operate, and you could be affecting the business in a negative manner, which in essence means the employees earning less money.
The Made to Grow podcast is brought to you by FlowLens, the simple, affordable MRP system specifically designed for SME device, equipment and machinery manufacturers. Our top-rated cloud-based software can help you cut down on wasted materials, time and money, and eliminate the chaos of running your manufacturing with spreadsheets and hope. Our customers have reported savings of over a day per week per person in their business by cutting out needless admin, duplication of work and countless mistakes. Plus, lead times are shortened by up to 75%. And after hundreds of successful implementations, we've got the blueprint for manufacturing success nailed down. Head over to flowlens.com for a quick video tour of the software and to hear from more manufacturers like you who have transformed their businesses with FlowLens. Now, back to the interview.
Taking it back a step, in terms of how you engage with a manufacturer, like most of us have a lot of common sense, and but you're the expert at certain things. So that skip that sat at the gate is a good example where it's been there for years, and for years it's never been a problem until that one time it became a problem, or and I'm just using that as an example. But how do you engage with a manufacturer to effectively do the gap analysis between what you think is going to be a robust and comprehensive environment, and where they are today? What's your sort of process?
It's understanding what the business wants to achieve is the short answer. So understanding where the business wants to get to, and drilling down to what it uses internally, so resources, partners, processes to get to where it wants to go, and then making sure that that is the priority of security. So excellence is not an act, it's a habit. Who I can't remember who said that, but so it's getting rid of all the noise and saying this is what we need to concentrate on to make sure the business needs to get to and then making sure all your security solutions are aligned to that. When I mentioned we can't affect the motivation offender, like security incidents occur, like they do generally occur for all sorts of reasons, but if they don't derail the business, then there is a level of tolerance that we'll accept and say, well, that's just within tolerance. We're not going to spend any money or waste any time doing that because it's not going to stop the business achieving what it wants to achieve. So we can just carry on going, and that comes down to understanding what is within that bracket. So what is important that the business has to do or can't allow to happen that's going to take it off its rails to stop it achieving what it's going to achieve. So while we can't affect the motivation offender, we can't stop someone trying something, but what we can do is we can stop them by our actions as a business. We can stop them achieving their aim. So their aim might be to encrypt some data to therefore in some form of ransomware to sell it back to us, right? Mm-hmm. We can't stop them trying, but what we can do is we can stop them achieving that aim by using security measures to ensure they can't reach that data. And there's lots of different things from a process point of view to a people point of view to a technical point of view to ensure that they can't achieve that. And so that's basically it. We've got to control the controllables. And once you understand what the business needs to achieve its aim, you then make sure your security measures control those, and then you're on your way. The rest of it's just noise.
Mm-hmm. So it's in some cases, I'm thinking of there's a building near our former office where I think it's the Royal Mail, manage all their cash, and there's about 3 fences and several security gates and dozens of cameras. That's a level of security to guarantee the risk that they have, which would be a sledgehammer to crack a nut for an entirely more simple operation or something that's not holding valuable stock or whatever. But maybe that's just too basic an example. But I mean, one of the things that we do in FlowLens that resonates with what you said is that in terms of the data piece, our customers need their team to be able to use the data in FlowLens. The whole principle behind FlowLens is that it's the one place for all of our business data, but there is that inherent risk then. And the way we do or handle that is that the system allows you to limit who has access to download and extract data from it, but it also shows you the reports that people are running and the audit trails and things like that. And as soon as you are letting somebody go or they've resigned, you can obviously remove them from the system completely. So those are the sorts of things you'd look out for in a software
absolutely
context.
You're exactly right. And then you sort of look at data and you think, well, you're making sure that only the right people can see the data, but then obviously you're then making sure you secure it in as well as where it's stored, but also in transit. I mean, mm-hmm. you can if you don't encrypt the data in transit, then you're inviting people to intercept that and jump in. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest mistakes is businesses say, well, if it happens to us, it happens to us, or you're not gonna stop somebody from hacking us or stop someone from breaking in. Well, you can't stop us from trying, but you can stop somebody from reaching their aim. Like, I mean, that example you get where they've got 3 fences and they've probably got security rated 4 fences and above for storing that amount of cash. You can't have half a fence around your mm-hmm. site and then say, well, if they're going to break in, they're going to break in. You're like, well, hold on a second. You can prevent. You can't stop them trying, but you can prevent them reaching their aim. And it's like there's no point in having data and have people on their laptops that take it home and it's not encrypted. Well, you're just mm-hmm. inviting things to go wrong. I mean, there are good practices that you can instill and good practices you can follow to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
You can argue that state level sort of hacking is a different level, and possibly we can't have much influence on that. I mean, if you look at the recent M&S and Co-op incidents, the legal aid agency that have been hacked recently, is there things that could have been done? Possibly, but I think that's probably
Well, this
a
is it.
different level.
Yeah, although you never know where, and this is where it comes down to common sense things like not using the same password on every login, having multi-factor authentication where it's available, having making sure your laptop and your phone have a passcode, that so the phone goes to sleep and you can't just open it up, because it's those are the little cracks where, whether it's a state level malicious act or a lower localized level thing, those are the cracks that people slip through, or they're looking for those cracks, and as you say, if they're motivated, they will eventually find them. So enacting those policies is at least the sort of table stakes for knowing you've done the the standard at these days. I mean, coming on, it would be good to talk about cyber essentials and how that fits into more specifically in terms of the security framework. Could you kind of give an overview for those who maybe don't know what it is and what you do for companies on cyber essentials?
Yeah, so cyber essentials is sort of the government led standard for securing your cyber environment from attack. It's sort of good practice. I mean, it's a step up from the one you mentioned, or the one you alluded to earlier, was the sort of cyber aware stuff, which is the very sort of low level that everyone's supposed to use. So we talk about a unique passwords for your email, for example, because and multi-factor authentication updates. That's the sort of stuff that everyone should be using, because it's individuals and their passwords. That's where the majority of things people get through. How many businesses can sort of say, yes, all my employees are using CyberAware or are CyberAware compliant, if that's the right word? I'm not sure there's that many. But the next stage up from that is Cyber Essentials. So where it's a government-backed accreditation where you prove that you comply with the legislation. And on the basic level, there's two parts. There's sort of Cyber Essentials and there's Cyber Essentials Plus. So Cyber Essentials is a self-certified thing where you fill in the documentation, you tell people what your actual processes are, and then you send it off, and as long as you comply by it, you get a certification. And the other one is Cyber Essentials Plus, where you do the same again, but then you get an external organization to test it, to say, actually, yes, it is the way it's supposed to. And it's just good practice. So I think it's 5 elements. So firewalls, so making sure you're using firewalls, so how you as a business access the internet and making sure that's secure in one way. Making sure you've got secure configuration, so all the machines you use, laptops, are secure. So any software that you're not using is disabled. All default passwords are changed. It talks about user access control for data. So you talked about making sure only the right people can see the data they're supposed to see. So it's talking about how you control that and how you ensure people can only see the data they're allowed to see. It makes sure that you have malware protection, some form of antivirus software on your machines or on all the machines that you use. And lastly, it talks about what they call patch management. So if you can imagine, like software, it's very dynamic and it becomes out of date. So it's making sure it's updated regularly and it's updated to when these patches get updated. Have you ever heard of the name 0 day? So a 0 day attack. So what happens is hackers, be that red hat or blue hat, they test this software and they're looking for vulnerabilities in this software. And if a vulnerability comes about, a 0 day attack is somebody that's exploiting this vulnerability before there is a fix that's been published out. What once it's become aware, and things like Microsoft and all these other software providers become aware of this vulnerability, they then put out fixes to reduce this vulnerability. And that's what it's about. It's about making sure that the software you use is secure, basically. And when you talk about when we talk about sort of beyond support, so when software becomes out of date, so people stop supporting it. They stop putting out fixes to fix the vulnerabilities, which means the software is inherently vulnerable for attack. And these vulnerabilities are known, as in people find them and they put them in these online bins where people can find them and can be exploited. Not all of them are used for nefarious reasons, but people put it out there for all sorts of reasons. So it's important that the software that we use is secured and maintained secure. And if you can prove that, you fill in documentation, you prove that, you send it off to the certifying body, you can get a proof that you're actually complying with the Cyber Essentials. And it's done every year. It's one of those things you need. And it's one of those things you need to do if you're using sort of government contracts. If you want to work with MOD, aerospace, that sort of stuff, then you've got to prove you comply with Cyber Essentials.
And how do you help manufacturers with Cyber Essentials?
So we can help manufacturers complete. So we will conduct a gap analysis, find out where they are, and find out where they need to be. And then help them achieve certification in the simplest ways possible. And we can help them sort of do Cyber Essentials Plus by getting an outside agency to conduct a penetration test to test they actually comply with it. So from zero to hero, I suppose the word is, and help them fill out the questionnaire.
It's like most things, manufacturers aren't experts in Cyber Essentials. They're hopefully experts at making their products and serving their customers. So it's another thing, that's it's quicker to bring in expertise, like yourselves, get the job done much quicker, find those gaps quicker. Not only are you protecting yourself, but the Cyber Essentials.
And I completely agree. But that's why I said at the beginning, when you said what does good look like, security has to align with the business. So you have to understand what the business wants to achieve, because there are 1,001 different ways to secure a business, both physically, both from a cyber point of view. But you don't want to waste your money on things that aren't going to support the business's main aim. You want to make sure that the security that you utilize supports the direction of travel of where the business is going. Everything else is just a complete waste of time, complete waste of money, and that's it.
Normally I ask guests to leave our listeners with one succinct piece of advice. I have a feeling you've just done that. But because that was a very great way to summarize that. Is there anything else that you would leave listeners with, just as we wrap up, to consider having listened to this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think my one bit of advice would be to understand. I said not understand, because people know where they want to go. Like they want to grow, or they want to be more productive, or increase production, or whatever their aim is. I would drill down and understand what you use to achieve that aim. So what resources you use. So be that software resources, be that machines, people, partners. So who are those partners, and the data. So importantly, the data. So where is that data? Do your partners have data that you need? It might be proprietary. It might be essential for the value you offer, but you need to understand it and where it is. And if partners have it, is it in the public domain, for example? Just drill down to understand what those bits are that you need as a business to make sure you go in your direction of travel, and then look at what it is you need to do to protect that and secure that. And then once you've done that, then everything else is just noise, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm. No worries. Well, look, I really appreciate that. That's been an excellent overview. I have enjoyed the conversation. I've learned a lot actually. And um, how do listeners get in touch with you if they would like to get some help?
Yeah, sure. So our website is equilibriumrisk.com. We are on LinkedIn. My name's Luke. There's a logo there. Please find me on there. But yeah, best way is equilibriumrisk.com, and just drop us a message, and we'll get back to you.
You can also find you through Connex portal, because that's how we know each other.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
through the Connex network as well. I would be remiss if I didn't finish this episode with a short plug for the book that we've recently released, which is Fearless Digital Transformation, and the S at the end, that final chapter. Last but not least, in this case, is a chapter that summarizes some of the key elements that manufacturers need to consider around securing their digital transformation. So just mention as well, if you haven't already downloaded the book, you can get it from flowlens.com. But once again, Luke, thanks very much. I really appreciate it, and have a good day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was an incredibly useful conversation with Luke from Equilibrium Risk, and it certainly helped make some fairly nebulous concepts a bit more relatable and reasonable. Luke shared some vital takeaways, especially around the importance of understanding what resources, partners, and data you use to achieve your business aims, and then making sure your security solutions align with protecting those critical elements. We can't, of course, prevent someone from trying to breach your security, but you can absolutely stop them from achieving their aim by putting the right measures in place. If you'd like to get in touch with Luke, you can find him at equilibriumrisk.com or connect with him on LinkedIn. We'll include all of those details in the show notes for this episode. Before we go, I'd be remiss not to mention our recently released book, Fearless Digital Transformation. As I mentioned earlier, the final chapter of the book summarizes some key considerations for manufacturers around securing their digital transformation journey. You can download your copy for free at flowlens.com. Till next time.